Welcome back. Steve Swartz, the CEO of Hearst, sat down with our own Maria Bartiromo for Wall Street Week, and she got his take on the entire media industry. Watch.
We often call this an Amazon economy because Amazon has just incredibly infiltrated in almost every industry, but none as much as media. Let's talk about that for a second and what's happening in terms of the digital story. You've got so many important brands, magazines and newspapers. How are you handling this digitization of media?
Well, you're right. It's affecting all sectors. Our biggest sector of media is actually television. But look, there is more great media than consumers have time to consume, and there are more places to put advertising than there really is advertising. So it has put more pressure on all the consumer media businesses, no question.
When you see somebody like a Disney saying, look, we're not going to be selling our shows, giving content away anymore, we're going to do our own streaming service. Is that where this is going? I mean, you've got very important stations across the country. What do you do when people's choices or thoughts are changing in terms of how they want that delivered?
Well, Disney is our great partner. We own 20% of ESPN. We jointly own the A&E History and Lifetime channels. And I think what Bob Iger and his colleagues are doing with this new streaming initiative is absolutely the right thing to do.
Let me ask you about ESPN. Look, we know that ratings are down. Obviously, this has been an issue for Disney. What's been the impact on Hearst?
Well, first of all, I think ESPN is still the best brand in media. And the sector has gotten harder, but you're talking about a very unique asset, no question. Both the advertising landscape and the subscription landscape has gotten harder for all TV brands.
Absolutely.
But if there's a brand you're going to bet on, I would say it would be ESPN.
Yeah, so do you think the ratings have been impacted by this whole kneeling controversy, or is it something else?
I just think it's the general that technology allows for so many more options. So I think all shows, whether they're entertainment or sports or what have you, are in a more competitive environment for audience.
What's going on in your business in terms of consolidation? We see the reports, Disney talking to Fox about acquiring. You see Discovery Networks, doubling down on content. Is content king to the extent that you want to even add more of it? How will your business change given all the deal flow going on around you?
I think you have to look at consolidation on a case-by-case basis. We recently announced that we are acquiring the fabulous Rodale magazine brands, men's health, women's health, prevention. We have been selectively buying newspapers adjacent to areas where we already own newspapers. We've bought a couple television stations over the last few years. We just look at it a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so do you think that the deal flow picks up? I mean, I know you're looking at it selectively, but as we speak, AT&T is trying to finish its deal with Time Warner. We don't know where that stands yet. And we've got all the players trying to figure out, how am I going to scale up in terms of growth?
I think it will. I don't think there'll be a huge wave, but I think clearly classic a business case is in a more difficult market. You often see consolidation for the very, at least to get some cost efficiencies in the business.
How will the AT&T Time Warner deal change the business? How does that impact your business, for example?
Well, it remains to be seen. Obviously, AT&T already a very powerful company, adding these very powerful brands. I think it will all depend on what they agree with the government in terms of how they are going to operate going forward.
Do you think they should sell either CNN or DirecTV?
I'm not involved enough to know what the regulators would do. I do think in general in this country we have many fabulous companies that in their sector, go beyond media or even beyond telecom, in their sector have become very powerful, and it is something that regulators and policymakers have to look at on a regular basis, because when companies become too big and powerful, it can choke off new business development and job creation and what have you.
Do you need to acquire more digital? Do you need to scale up in that area of the business?
We look at digital across the landscape of all information. So most of our acquisitions, several $1 billion worth over the last several years, have been in digital business data or business software. When you look at consumer digital, all of our businesses are becoming more digital, but acquisitions aren't that easy to make because there are a lot of so-called pure play digital media companies that aren't profitable, which makes acquiring them a tall order.
Let me ask you about the policy coming out of Washington. Your thoughts on the tax plan? Does it impact your business?
I think that for business in general, the corporate tax cut is very important, and I give credit to the Business Roundtable, Jamie Dimon and Josh Bolton gotten the business community together to say that this is our highest priority. Corporate tax cut, the ability to repatriate earnings overseas and going to a territorial system is very, very important. And I think there's actually bipartisan support for that. It gets more complicated when you get onto the individual side, and clearly more work to be done there. We're a New York company. The talk about eliminating the state and local tax deduction is very painful for New York, and we're hopeful that something can be done there.